Hey everyone, so here's an update on the NASDAQ futures chart here and why I think that it could be beneficial for Bitcoin. So basically, as many of you know, that the Bitcoin really does trade pretty much in parallel with the NASDAQ. It trades basically like a tech stock. So here's what we got going on right now. There's this long-term trend line coming in from the all-time highs on the NASDAQ here, and basically you can see we touched it again here a couple of times, and then it comes down at around the $13,000 mark, just depending on how soon it would get up there. But there's also this major level of resistance or support depending on which direction you're going, but basically you can see it's 13,000, and psychologically it's a nice round number and markets love round numbers. So you can see that it was support here, support here, support here, support here, and then once we finally broke it, it was resistance, and then it was resistance again. So it's going to be very hard to break that. What I could see happening, though, just like I talked about with Bitcoin, is that with all the news coming out this week, we see essentially a fake out towards the bottom, because if you do look at this, we have been trending higher and we have been making higher lows on the NASDAQ and regaining a little bit of strength. I mean, some of the names like Netflix and others were oversold just to extreme levels. I mean, it was insane how much some of these big stocks, the FANG stocks, had fallen. So people come in and they're value buyers and looking at it like that. So essentially, we started to make a comeback on the Nasdaq, and we have this trend line that's actually forming. That's hit like a number of times. It's a very reliable trend line that's just making higher lows. And what we could do, and I could see happening, is that when we have all the news digested this week in breaking, basically starting tomorrow, we see a drop down, maybe around to this. Now, this is the 4-hour trading chart, so this is the 200 moving average, which is right here basically at the trend line, another good level of support. So what I could see happening is we see some sort of a drop, freak everyone out. Everyone thinks that this news is terrible, whatever the Fed decides to do. And then essentially what happens is we maybe even trade sideways for a day or so. Maybe the market kind of chops back and forth a little bit, but then ultimately we resume the march back up. And then if we play it out just for a little bit longer, like into August, basically this 13,000 now starts to be very confluent with this trend line coming down here as well. So that's where I would then think that we might have reached a short-term high, and then we will see things start to drop down. But in the process of the NASDAQ going down to around here and then climbing back up to here, very likely we would see a Bitcoin rally. We'll probably see the dollar also reduce in value as well. It's been on such a tear, but we'd probably see the dollar move back down, which would be natural because it's had such a big run up. But essentially, that's when we could maybe see Bitcoin hit the high 20s as the NASDAQ started to come back up to these levels. See, it really helps to go out to these larger time frames. You can basically see very easily kind of the patterns that we're trading in, and how it's very likely that we come down to somewhere in here and then we retest back up to this 13,000 mark. But that's where I would be very, very cautious and be looking to go back into cash positions and then waiting to see what happens at that point. So anyway, hopefully that's helpful, and I'll talk to you guys very soon with some more updates.